Just hit this. So, welcome you guys, and those of you that are watching this on the recorded version on YouTube. So here we are, just over a week until race day, and I can imagine that nerves are beginning to flutter around a little bit, but that's perfectly normal. That's just part of the adventure, part of the experience of doing these sorts of events. So I guess the best thing to do is to start talking about how to deal with those nerves and what they actually mean. And you know, everyone will get nervous. The person that is going out there to do it for their first time and just cross the finish line will be just as nervous as the person who's going out there to win it. So, even though you are special and you've got your own approach and issues with going into the race, everybody is dealing with the same feeling and the same emotions. So in that regard, it's actually really reassuring to know that when you think about it, you actually aren't the only person who's going through a mixture of emotions and nerves, and you can take strength from the fact that everybody else in the start line will be feeling the same thing as you. So don't isolate yourself and just think that it's just you that's dealing with this stuff. It's everybody will be going through the same feelings, and it's really important to have that sense of anxiousness and nervousness, because it actually means that you're really invested in the event itself. It means that you understand how much work you've put into it and the commitments you made to it, and it just shows that you want to get out there and give your best, and to prove to yourself and to those people that are close to you that you can set a goal and you can achieve those goals. So it's really good to be nervous. I often get worried if I have athletes that are quite blasé about an event and sort of brush it off as being just something that they'll just get through and pass through, because you sort of get a sense that they're not there for the right reasons. They're not invested in it. They're not wanting to really expose themselves and find out their strengths and weaknesses through a big day like this. So
yeah,
so it's really good that you do have that. But the other thing is you can lose control of those nerves a little bit, and you can actually have them overtake your whole approach to the event and actually detract from the more important things. So try and turn the nervousness and perhaps the negative feelings around to one of more excitement, and knowing that you'll be on doing something incredibly special. You're doing the first time that this event's been done, so you'll be a pioneer, and you'll always be the first person that was on the start list, or in the history of this race. So that in itself is something to be really excited about, and then just channel that energy into how you will go about your day. And the funny thing is, as soon as the gun goes, as soon as you start, all those nerves wash away. It's gone. What you will be dealing with from there is stress from within the race, and stresses that are occurring to you from circumstances that are often beyond your control. So don't go into this event expecting things to happen, because we're not machines that can predict things. We can just prepare ourselves for scenarios, and that's where the excitement comes, because you don't know what's going to happen. No one knows what's going to happen, and it's up to you to deal with anything that does happen and make it a real positive experience. So the biggest thing on everybody's mind right now, with the proximity to the race as we are, is what the weather's going to be like. And that's probably the most important thing to be thinking about right now, because even though that they say that you can't do anything about the weather, I kind of disagree with that. I think there's a lot you can do about the weather. I mean, we know it's going to either be sunshine, rain, wind, hot, cold, whatever, but there are so many things that you can do with that information to prepare yourself for what is going to be the best day for you. And so going into being 8, 9 or 10 days out, you can actually start getting an idea of how the weather may affect the day. it's been pretty fickle at the moment. And even Edwina and the Tin Man, I mean, on Thursday I was looking at the weather and thinking, oh, you poor buggers, you're just going to get absolutely destroyed from the rain. And it turned out to be a beautiful hot day. And so there was just nothing that you could have done about that, but there's so much you could have done to prepare for it. So yeah, if it looks like the forecast isn't particularly good, then start your preparation for how do you cope with the cold. Do you have arm warmers? Do you have a vest on for the bike? Do you have a polyprop that you put on once you get out of the water? Do you have gloves? Do you have overshoes? All these sorts of things. And as you get closer to the event, then you can start fine-tuning that package of equipment you have. You might actually know that there's a pattern of fine weather coming, but it might be cooler in the morning, but maybe the rain's gone, so that might mean you don't need a rain jacket, but you may still need your arm warmers or your gloves and those sorts of things. And then as it gets hotter and hotter and hotter, you need to have clothing or equipment that will actually help you keep cool. So whether you have a singlet or you have actual arm sleeves which you can cover in water, which help keep your skin temperature down, all those sorts of things start coming into play. Access to sunscreen, will you wear a hat, sunglasses, all those sorts of things. So right now, start looking at what the weather's going to be and start planning your day around that. The other thing to do is to start thinking about scenarios around the expected wind conditions. So if you think it's going to be a wind that will cause the swim to be a little bit choppy, maybe over the next few days when you do have a swim session, try and get out into some choppier conditions just to get yourself used to being knocked around a little bit. If you think the light's going to be a little bit lower, then maybe try a few different types of goggles to see what one really works for you. Do you have a smoke lens? Do you have a clear lens? Do you have a yellow lens? All those sorts of things that come race day, if something happens, you're not surprised by it. You think, okay, this is happening. This is how I deal with it, rather than something happening and you going, oh, I got no idea what to do now. So at least the next week, with a lower training volume, you get a little bit more time to work on these sorts of things. The other thing with the wind is, where can you expect the wind to be affecting you most on the bike? That's a big issue, and I know particularly in the course that you guys will be riding on, there's some more exposed areas as you get back towards Napier, back towards the transition area. And when I've raced there in the past, in the Harbour Hills, it was pretty windy coming back towards town. And, with knowing that, then it means that earlier in the ride, you really need to conserve a lot more energy. You need to take fuel on board, because once a wind starts blowing, it'll take a lot more energy from you, and it's a lot harder to fuel when you're in windy conditions. As you probably found when you're training at the moment, if the wind blows from the side, it's very hard to take your hand off handlebars and have a drink. So does it mean you need to start slowing down a little bit to get that drink on board, get that food on board? Do you even need to stop to give yourself a chance to actually get something on board safely? Is there a section on the course where maybe the wind's behind you so you can get a little bit of respite and a bit of a chance to recover that energy to some degree? If there's the general rule of thumb on a windy day is if you've got a tailwind, if it's blowing you if it's blowing at your back and it's pushing you down the road, I try to ride a little bit easier, because if your effort is lower but your speed is going to be higher because of the tailwind, that's a chance to just bank energy, and you're just keeping the energy installed. You're not overdoing yourself. You're not pushing your limits. I always see a tailwind as an opportunity to conserve and prepare myself for when the wind is going to be in my face. When it's blowing on your nose and you're pushing into the wind, that's when you need to push a little bit harder just to keep on top of your momentum. The effect of a headwind is if you just drop off your intensity a little bit is so much greater than it is from the effect of a tailwind if you just push a little bit harder. So much better off saving energy for when the wind is going to be in your face than thinking of a tailwind as a chance to go faster and faster and faster. And then the other one is, well, probably more importantly, is the crosswind. So the crosswind is obviously where it's coming from your left or your right hand side, and it might be slightly on your nose. So it's a sort of a cross headwind or a cross tailwind. But what a crosswind is going to do is you actually need to keep your effort very, very steady and very, very smooth. Try and minimize how much body movement you have, and just keep very strong and stable on the bike. And you almost lean yourself onto the wind, and rather than tensing up and sort of fighting it, you just sort of lean with the wind, and you just let the wind move your body as you go. And you can get a lot of really, really good positive momentum just with using a crosswind properly. And regardless of the speed you're traveling at, you can still make really, really good gains with a crosswind. But you can also, if you treat it wrongly, you can make a massive deficit in your energy, and you can really tense up your arms, and you can tense up your back, and it can get very, very uncomfortable. So I always, in a crosswind, just relax, just lean on the wind and let it move me around a little bit. And it's almost the point that your bike might actually shift a little bit from side to side as you ride. So you might move half a meter to the left or the right, just from the gust of wind. But if you focus too much and try to hold a line and pin it without moving off that straight line, then you'll use a lot more energy trying to do that. So just think about that as something to consider. The other thing to think about then is when you're on the run, the wind can also affect you a lot as well. So again, if you're running with a tailwind, it might feel very, very easy to run fast and run smooth, and you may find that you can sort of tick along at a really solid pace. That's probably the wrong thing to do. You should actually be looking at a tailwind as a chance to relax, bring your heart rate down, get really comfortable, just loosen your arms and loosen your neck and your shoulders a little bit. Because when you're running into the headwind and you're leaning into the wind a little bit, you actually need to be strong and stable, and you need your energy for that as well. So a lot of time can be lost running into a headwind. A lot more time than can be gained if you're running with a tailwind as well. So the wind isn't necessarily your friend, but the wind can really be used as an ally in certain times of the event. And the cruel nature of this sort of sport is the longer you're out on the course, the worse the conditions get. It's not fair. It's terrible. You look at the professional athletes, they have it so great. They generally have a flat swim. The wind doesn't pick up until later in the day, and the sun isn't out for as long for them as it is for people that are out a long time in the course. So it's the cruel nature of the sport that those that are out for longer will be exposed to more conditions, and in the end, you're actually the tougher ones. You know, the people that are at the back end of the field are the ones that are doing it much, much harder and having a much more challenging time than the people that are winning the race. So that's a mark of honour. I always think that you'll have up on the person winning the race is that they got it easy. They got to finish early. You know, they missed all the excitement of later in the day. So so those little things are things that you need to be doing between now and the races, is preparing yourself mentally for how you think this race will play out, but being prepared to change the plan if something happens, if weather condition changes so suddenly. The other thing that I'll encourage people to start doing is getting into a habit of really healthy eating. It's not so much reducing your caloric intake, because that's actually a really dangerous way to go into an event. Even though you're training less, your workload won't be as much, and quite often people think I don't need to eat as much. But actually, what you want to do is turn up to this race perfectly prepared and topped up with glycogen in your muscles, so that you can go to your absolute best on race day. And so that means that you're eating normally, like normal quantities of food, but you're eating a much higher quality of it. So vegetables. If you're not vegetarian, then certainly eat a lot more. Eat your red meat and that, but good quality cuts, and try and stay away from the more starchy type foods. So pasta and potatoes and rice tends to have quite a lot of starch in it. So whilst you can still eat that sort of food, just don't have as much of it as you think. Back in the 90s, we used to carbo load with massive plates of pasta, and actually that wasn't the best thing to do, because it was just the wrong sort of carbohydrate. But you can still have that sort of food, but just be a little bit careful of the amount that you have. But look for quality, and look for volume in your food, and the better quality foods that you can source. Also, make sure that your hydration is on a good safe level. You don't want to overhydrate. You certainly don't want to underhydrate, but just try not to be thirsty during the days when you're leading into this, because any level of dehydration can affect you quite a bit later on. So yeah, just don't overdo it, but don't neglect to eat and drink. And the other thing is a good rule of thumb is to stay away from alcohol for the next week, and that's quite an important one. Alcohol has a massive deleterious effect on our muscle physiology and our abilities to sleep. Have quality sleep and that sort of thing. So it's just a good idea to switch that off for the week. But I normally do allow myself to have a beer before the race, just as a just to sign off that training block going to the race. But I won't have anything excessive in the weeks leading into it. In fact, I have no alcohol beer at the moment, which is absolute saving grace. I absolutely love it. So I can still feel like I'm having a beer, but I'm actually not having the effects of one. So that's not a bad thing. The other thing to do now, between now and the race, is to make sure that your bike and your wetsuit and your goggles and your running shoes are all up to scratch, all at perfect condition. If you've got goggles that are a little bit misty and a bit foggy inside, replace them now. There's no point in sort of persevering with it and hoping that they'll be okay to get through on race day. Generally, if the air temperature is cold and the water is a little bit warmer, which is probably what it's going to be on race day, your goggles will fog up as soon as you hit the water, because there's too much differential between the temperatures. So that's a horrible thing to have to deal with. As soon as you put your face in the water and your goggles fog up and you think, oh shit, I've got this race starting in 2 minutes and I can't see the buoy. If you've got good quality goggles, that's not going to happen as much. Bicycle, make sure that your bike's clean. Check it in to get a service. So I've got a guy that I take my bike to in the week before the race, and I'll just hand it off to him, and I'll say, run for me. If there's anything that needs to be done, let me know. But at least you give it to somebody else to make it their responsibility to make sure this bike's working perfectly. So any nicks and cuts in your tires, now's a good time to change those tires, because you don't want to race on fresh tires. You want to race on a tire that's probably had 50 to 100 kilometers on it, so it's got that initial film of rubber taken off, and that will allow it to be a much better quality, much more comfortable tire. Make sure that the chain is of very good quality, and doesn't necessarily have to be replaced, but it just needs to be clean, running smoothly with the gears. Make sure all the bolts on your handlebars and your saddle are tight enough. Make sure your bottle cages are tight. If you need to replace your bar tape, I just replaced my bar tape on my bike today. I had some leftover new bar tape, and I thought, well, it's a good time to change that now. I've got a race in 2 weeks, so that just gives you a chance to know that everything's fresh and feeling comfortable. Check your helmet for any damage to it, and also just double check that it fits comfortably, that the straps are in good condition. I've had my straps come undone away from the buckle on race morning. It's just one of those freak things that happen, and it's so frustrating to try and fiddle around getting my helmet back together again. And then think about the sunglasses you'll be wearing. If you've got different color lenses, what lenses will be appropriate for the conditions. and just use cycle shoes. Make sure your cleat bolts are tight. It's really, really common for cleat bolts to come undone through the course of a season, and it's just Murphy's law that it's going to happen on race day. Your cleat bolt comes undone, and it's really frustrating. If you're running Di2, if you've got electronic gearing, make sure that your battery is fully charged. Make sure the battery is fully charged on your GPS computers, your power meter, heart rate strap, all those sorts of things. And also check your spares. If you carry spare tubes with you, do you have 1 or 2 spare tubes? Have you got enough gas canisters? Do you have a pump? How do you have them attached to your bike? Is that secure? Is it safe? It's not going to fall off. There's no random bits of things taped to the side of your bike, all those sorts of things. And how are you going to carry your fuel? If you're going to be using your own fuel rather than taking off the course, is there enough space to put them on your bike? Are you going to take them to your top tube? Do you have a little a case that you put them in that sits on your top tube? All those sorts of things. So really spend some time making sure that is absolutely perfect. Come to your running shoes. Are the laces in good order? Are the shoes in good condition? If the shoes are beginning to get a little bit worn, might be a good idea to replace them or wear a shoe that's less worn out. And the socks you're wearing, the unusual ones that you would wear in an event or in training, try and avoid having things that are new and untested going into the race. And then I guess a really important one is how do you approach the training between now and race day? So on your training plan, obviously you've got workouts to do, and I've set those workouts based on the assumption that everything is going really nice and smoothly for you, so there's no issues. That's a good training plan to follow. If you have anything that gets in your way, whether you've got some illness or you've got a little niggling injury or you've got some stress at work, all those things take priority over your training. If you have got a chance to do a workout but you're not sure whether you can manage the intervals that are set, just do an easy session. Just do an easy workout. Don't start putting doubt and excessive stress on your body now, but it's a good idea to just roll into the race if you've got any level of uncertainty or excessive stress. Try and get as much sleep as you can. Sleep's the biggest thing that can help prepare you for a really good quality race. And probably the sleep the night before the race is not going to be great. So you want to make sure that you've got enough good quality sleeping days beforehand, before you get to the night before the race, that you don't have to worry about whether you get 3, 4, or 5 hours or 8 hours. At least you know that for the last 5 or 7 days, you've been getting 8 or 9 hours a night, and it's been going really well. And then, all those sorts of things, you've done everything you can to make sure that you turn up on race morning as prepared as you will ever be. And that's the best thing you can do. Like that's all you can ask for yourself, to be able to do that. What happens from then on comes down to you and how you cope with things that happen on the day. And that's where the excitement starts, because now you start thinking, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? And you start thinking about cool things that will happen. You're going to see your mates out there. You're going to have a really cool time. And, you're always looking forward to certain parts of the course. And, then it becomes a really, really exciting experience, because you know that, at a certain point in time, your family's going to be on the side of the road. You can look forward to seeing them there. And all those little things will start unfolding for you as you go through the race. But I think the really important thing on race morning is to give yourself plenty of time to get there, to get to the race start without feeling like you're rushed. Get up early enough that you can have a decent breakfast, but not too close to the race that you haven't digested it completely. You want to make sure that you don't get cold before the race. A really important thing that I often see is people just walking around in shorts and a t-shirt in the early hours of the morning, maybe an hour before the race starts. And it can be quite cool. And that's actually as soon as your body starts having to try and keep itself warm, you're using excessive amounts of energy. I've got to fly in front of my camera, stupid thing. You start using excessive amounts of energy, and that's energy that you don't want to be using for doing something as stupid as keeping yourself warm. So I'll be wearing a beanie, I'll have a nice jacket on, I'll have some long pants on, might even have some gloves, and I'm keeping as warm as I can for as long as I can. Make sure you know where your bike is positioned in transition. That's a really important thing. It can be really confusing when you come out of the water and you're a little bit doolally in the brain and you can't remember where your bike was, and it does happen. And you run up and down transitions and you think, where is this bike gone? And the worst thing would be someone else has done the same thing and taken your bike, but that probably won't happen. But yeah, you just have to be really, really in tune as to where things are and be in the moment. Don't be lost in the whole thing. Just make sure that right now, this is what I need to be doing. I need to be running to my bike. I need to get my bicycle. I need to put my helmet on first, and then take my bike out to the side of the road, and then get on it. Once you're on the bike, get into a pattern of getting fuel in early. So if you think about it, with the swim, you've been in the water for a long, long time, and a long time without any food or fuel. And the longer you're out there for, the greater that impact will be. So people that are in the swim for maybe 50 to 60 minutes, they don't have to deal with it quite as badly as people that are in the swim for an hour and a half to 2 hours, because that's a long time to be exercising without getting fuel on board. So as soon as you get on the bike, have a banana, have a bar, have a good drink of carb drink. Just start getting to that pattern of first of all replenishing the fuel that you've used, and then getting on top of your fuel plan, so that you're not at some point in the ride realizing, I'm low on fuel. Because as soon as that happens, it's a hard road to get back to fully topped up again. So the best thing is to not let that happen at all. In terms of fueling, everybody's got their own little system and their own amounts that work best for them. But it's just common sense. It's if I often think that if I'm in a race and I feel like I've got fuel on board and I feel quite satiated and I feel I've got a good amount of food in my tummy, then that's probably enough. Any more than that, I might start feeling sick. If I do start feeling a little bit crook, I'll drink a little bit more water to try and dilute it. If I'm feeling like I'm a little bit hungry, I'll have something to eat. It might mean that you go off your pre-planned fuel intake, but that's because things are happening in the race that possibly outside of your control, and maybe it's a little bit cooler, so you're using a bit more energy. Maybe it's hot, so you're using a bit more energy to try and keep yourself cool. All those sorts of things can start happening. So be prepared to change your fuel plan as you go, and don't be afraid if you have to. And then obviously the longer the bike ride goes, the harder it is or the less motivated you may be to take food or drink on board. But that's actually the point where you need to be really dedicated and actually focus on saying, I need to get this food in me. If you think about a normal day at work being 8 hours, you've got snacks, you've got morning tea, you've got lunchtime, you've got afternoon tea, you've got an afternoon tea snack or whatever. Through the course of an 8-hour day, you actually eat quite a lot. So if you're on the bike exercising and you're out there for that long, you need to be having the normal amount you would have to keep yourself operating, your basal metabolic rate, plus the food, plus the fuel that you've used to exercise as well. So there's a huge amount of fuel that needs to go on board. And the biggest problem that I see when I'm watching an endurance event like this is later in the day when you see people really struggling on the run, and it's just generally because they just didn't fuel enough or sufficiently on the bike earlier in the day when it really mattered most. And that's often the thing that will derail someone's performance, or it might even mean that they don't finish as they just didn't have the fuel on board. So whatever you can do, try not to let yourself get behind on your eating and drinking. And then when you get to the run, because it's often quite hard to take a decent amount of food and drink on board when you're running because it's sloshing around in your tummy. So you actually want to have the most easily digested product at that time then. So whether it's gels, blocks, drink, you might find that you can eat some lollies or you can eat some chips and those sorts of things, but it might start getting hard to eat bars or muesli bars, bananas, that sort of stuff. So you really want to be using that stuff on the bike and then get into the run and just using the very, very easily digested products. And then it's just a matter of putting one foot in front of the other and getting to the finish line and being prepared to be out for a long time, but a good time, because at least on the run, you can stop and you can chat and you can talk, you can walk and you can have a bit of a yarn with some friends, whereas on the bike, there's not much that happening. It's all serious and all business. So the run is actually the bit I always look forward to, because that's the bit that I know I can really get face to face with other people in the race and have a bit of fun with it. Yeah, I guess that covers the main things I wanted to bring up. But do you guys have any questions that you had?
No.
No, I think that covered sort of everything that I was querying.
Cool. I saw that they've made a announcement that after 1 p.m. you're allowed to that drafting will be allowed, which I think is a great idea. I think that's awesome. So if you're out by after 1 o'clock, jump on the wheel, start sharing the load, start sharing the work, because that'll be the thing that will actually make it very hard to finish. Just being on your own for a long, long time. So yeah, as soon as the 1 p.m. ticks over, check the people around you, say, come on guys, we've got to work together. Yeah, let's get to that finish. And I think that's a great idea. That's awesome. Aid stations, I know you need to stop and refuel and stuff, but it's a really good idea to do. Don't neglect the importance of that. So even if you've got half a bottle full, stop, top it up, get back on the bike again, rather than blasting through and waiting for the next aid station. But yeah, those sorts of things are most important. But yeah, I'm obviously, if there's any other questions that people may have, you know how to get hold of me. And I'm just really looking forward to seeing how everyone's gone. And it's just, when you reflect how far we've come, it's 24 weeks is 6 months. It's a long time. And you've done it through the worst of the weather. It's like, oh my God, what is this? What has this year been?
I've been following the Napier long range forecast, and it's supposed to be all right.
Cool.
It's supposed to be, from memory, I think it's supposed to rain right up to maybe Tuesday, Wednesday. It stops, and then it starts again Thursday, Friday. But Saturday's supposed to be all right in the morning. It looks like maybe some cloud in the afternoon, which will be all right for the.
That's not a bad thing.
If it's still daylight and I'm running, should be.
I'm looking at actually.
So
it looks good. Actually, for the forecast I'm looking at, Monday through to Saturday looks really good.
Oh, that's good. Has it changed? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
because there was a few days of rain, and then it was going, and then it was coming back, and then it was going. So
right, no. So 17 degrees on Saturday, 20 degrees on Friday, 23 on Wednesday. Actually, it's quite warm.
Wow.
And then it eases off a little bit. And
might be able to get some more of a triathlon tan.
Yeah, exactly. And then wind-wise, oh, cool, west southwest. So that's actually quite favourable right now. So forecast can change, but that's something to start looking at now and going, okay, so this is where I'm going to feel the wind, and this is where I'm going to feel the heat. But I'm quite encouraged by that. It's a good week coming up. This week's been absolute misery. I don't know how we get by in this weather. My Zwift account's been getting absolutely hammered. Okay, guys. Well, that'll be us for now. But thanks so much for coming on board and let me help you through this journey. And I'm looking forward to we'll have a debrief. We'll have a debrief a couple of days after the race, and I'll be
Sounds good.
I'll be in Taupo ready to do my race a few days after, so you can give me some motivation and inspiration for my little thing.
I'll be there to yell at you on the 10th.
Oh, good. Yeah, come and find us. We'll yep, you'll see us.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Is Bex doing it too?
Yeah, she's doing the 70.3.
Rebecca?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because the elite race is the 70.3, and the age group race is the age group only for Ironman. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Oh, cool.
I'm
Awesome.
hoping she has a good race, so I don't have to be too stressed while I'm
Yeah.
racing.
Yeah. No, that sounds good.
Cool.
Awesome. Oh, thank you very much, and we'll see you down there probably,
You will.
or talk to you afterwards.
You will. Okay, guys.
Okay. See
Thanks,
you.
later.
Rob.